Welcome back! My name is ballerscuba. This is Video Games Over Time. Today we're going to talk about the world of 1974. We're going to start with perhaps the most impactful event of 1974 on video games. Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson designed Dungeons & Dragons, a fantasy tabletop role-playing game. This will prove to be so influential on the history of video games that it deserves its own spotlight, which we will give in another video. Hungarian sculptor and professor of architecture Erno Rubik invented the Rubik's Cube, then known as the Hungarian Magic Cube. It would take some time before the puzzle would reach commercial markets, but it started confounding users in 1974. In American political news, President Nixon resigned from the presidency under threat of impeachment by the House of Representatives due to the Watergate scandal. Vice President Gerald Ford was sworn in as president immediately after the resignation. A month later, President Ford gave former President Nixon a full and unconditional pardon for any crimes he may have committed against the United States while president. Turning to film, the highest-grossing movies of 1974 were Blazing Saddles, The Towering Inferno, The Trial of Billy Jack, Young Frankenstein, and Earthquake. Some other notable films of 1974 include Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, The Man with the Golden Gun,
Stop screaming. You'll start talking about
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2. Moving to sports. In boxing, Muhammad Ali defeated George Foreman by knockout in Kinshasa, Zaire to regain the World Heavyweight Championship. This fight, known as the Rumble in the Jungle, was watched by an estimated audience of 1 billion viewers, becoming the most watched live television broadcast at the time. In American football, the Miami Dolphins defeated the Minnesota Vikings 24-7 to win Super Bowl VIII. In baseball, the Oakland Athletics defeated the Los Angeles Dodgers 4-1 to win the World Series. In soccer, West Germany defeated the Netherlands 2-1 to win the 1974 FIFA World Cup. In basketball, the Boston Celtics defeated the Milwaukee Bucks 4-3 to win the NBA Finals. The New York Nets defeated the Utah Stars 4-1 to win the ABA Finals. In golf, Johnny Miller was the PGA Tour money leader. In NASCAR, Richard Petty won the NASCAR Grand National Series. In comics, 1974 marks the debut of The Punisher in The Amazing Spider-Man number 129, Wolverine in The Incredible Hulk number 180, Iron Fist in Marvel Premiere number 15, and Uchu Senkan Yamato, Space Battleship Yamato. On television, the highest-rated television shows of the 1973-74 season were All in the Family, The Waltons, Sanford and Son, MASH, and Hawaii Five-0. In England, John Pertwee ended his run as Doctor Who. Tom Baker took over as the Fourth Doctor. For those unfamiliar with the show, what I just said makes perfect sense, I swear. Monty Python's Flying Circus ended its run in the United Kingdom. In that same year, Monty Python's Flying Circus debuted in the United States, but that would not be the end of Monty Python for us. Some notable television debuts in 1974 include Shazam, Uchu Senkan Yamato, Space Battleship Yamato, and Hong Kong Phooey. Hong Kong Phooey, as well as Star Trek the Animated Series, would both end in 1974. In literature, a couple notable books published in 1974 include Jaws by Peter Benchley and Carrie by Stephen King. For music, I have linked a playlist to the Billboard #1 songs of 1974. This is the cultural context for video games in 1974, so let's turn our attention to the still emerging video games industry. In April 1974, Magnavox, along with Sanders Associates, filed a patent infringement lawsuit against Atari, among other companies, for commercializing the concept of video games played on a television screen. This patent belonged to Ralph Baer, the creator of the Magnavox Odyssey, who had applied for the patent in March 1971. Magnavox's argument was that Baer's patent was so broad that any technology that used electrical circuits to control dots on a standard television screen was covered by the patent. The lawsuit had been delayed while Atari had become more successful, so that the lawsuit would be profitable for Magnavox. The lawsuit would not be resolved in 1974, so we will have to return to this topic later. In October, Magnavox was purchased by Royal Philips Electronics. Philips then rebranded all their Norelco electronics as Magnavox Electronics and rebranded itself Philips Consumer Electronics. Philips now had the rights to not only the Odyssey, but the lawsuit against Atari. As for video games themselves, these are the honorable mentions of 1974. Space Sim, a spaceflight simulation and first-person space shooter developed by Jim Bowery for the Play-Doh Computer Network in March. This 32-person networked game was played at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Space Sim could be the first 3D first-person game depending on Maze War's release date. Grand Track 10, an arcade racing game designed by Larry Emmons and Alan Alcorn, developed by Cyan Engineering, a subsidiary of Atari, and published by Atari in May. This is the first racing game to feature a car. This game, as well as the clone released through Key Games, another subsidiary of Atari, sold well, but due to pricing issues, proved to be a financial failure. Formula K, the Key Games clone, sold 6,000 units. Speed Race, an arcade racing game designed by Tomohiro Nishikado and published by the Taito Corporation, a Japanese electronics company, in November. This was the first video game to feature vertical scrolling and the first Japanese game to be released in North America. Midway Games published it in North America, selling over 7,000 units. Tank, an arcade tank game designed by Steve Bristow and Lyle Raines and published by Key Games in November. Key Games was already being merged into Atari when this game was released. This game proved to be a commercial hit, selling over 10,000 units in 1974 and 5,000 units in 1975. And that, from a video game perspective, is the world of 1974. My name is ballerscuba. This has been Video Games Over Time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in our deep dive into Dungeons and Dragons.